Hi, this is Jamey with Stonemeyer Games, and it's Sunday, so it's time for my Sunday Sit-Down chat where I talk in detail about a board game and or game design topic. And today, I'm going to talk about games that I really enjoy playing at parties. Not necessarily party games, but games that I think play really well at parties, that I enjoy and that other people seem to enjoy. And the reason this is fresh on my mind is because I attended a birthday party of a friend of mine, Noah, who runs Game Trays, last night. And there's a lot going on at the party. There was some drinking going on in the kitchen. There was rock band going on in another room, and there was a big table set up for board games and tabletop games. And usually there were either one or two games going on at that table at all times. I ended up playing On Tour and Camel Up at the table, and in between those games, we were kind of looking around to see what games would work well for the table, especially given the noise at the party, the different types of people who were there, the idea that you're playing with a mix of friends and strangers, all these different categories that I will talk about as I list my top 10. In no particular order. I also will have an honorable mention list. In fact, I'll start with the honorable mentions. These are games that I think I would enjoy at a party. I would have enjoyed last night. I would enjoy at most parties, but they didn't quite make the list for various reasons that you'll see when I talk about the top 10. So the honorable mentions are Meeple Circus, Magic Maze, No Thanks, On Tour, Downforce, Fake Artist, the Shipwreck Arcana, Azul, Blokus, and Coup. So let's get to the top 10 in no particular order, and I'll talk about some different game design things here related to each of these games. The first one is JustOne. JustOne is a cooperative party game where each player is trying to give a one-word clue to another player who is trying to guess what that what the word is. So I might have a word. I might have hamburger. I don't know what the word is hamburger. Everyone else knows the word is hamburger. They're trying to relay to me that the word is hamburger with a word that's just one clue, and they have to write down their clues simultaneously, and any clues that duplicate other clues. So if you wrote down McDonald's and someone else wrote down McDonald's, those clues would cancel out. I would not even see them as I'm trying to guess hamburger. So it's this really neat cooperative game. And one of the reasons I put it on this list, A, because it just works really well, but B, because it's, as many of these games do, JustOne is fun for people who aren't even playing. So if people are just around the game while it's happening, they can still have fun because they can look at the words that are being displayed on the table, and they can try to guess what the word is too, internally, not out loud. And so I think a lot of these games do a great job of that. They engage the people that are around them, even if they're not actually playing the game. So that's JustOne. The next one is Camel Up. Camel Up, I looked at my pile here because I used to own Camel Up. I don't own it anymore, but I played the new version last night, and it's really nice. We had a great time, and I think Camel Up belongs on this list. Camel Up is a racing game where you are betting on different camels to be the first to cross the finish line, or even the last to cross the finish line. You are not like represented by a camel on the table. You are kind of a bettor who's betting on these camels. And it's just, again, it's a fun spectator game, and it's very visual. And that's another category that I wanted to mention here, that I think these party games work well, or these games at parties work well, when they have a very appealing and inviting visual to them. And the new Camel Up definitely has that, because it has these big chunky camels, they're very colorful, has this big pyramid that you're shaking up and you're rolling dice out of it. And the board pops up and has this palm tree that pops up out of the board like a pop-up book. So it's very visually appealing. I think it draws people in, and again, it kind of engages people visually, even if they're not actually playing it. That's Camel Up. The next game on my list, again in no particular order, is The Mind. And The Mind is a cooperative game where you are trying to play cards in a sequential order from 1 to 100, depending on the cards that you have, cooperatively, without breaking that chain. And The Mind, I think, works really well because, especially at last night's party, it was pretty loud. Like I mentioned, there was rock band, the kitchen was right next to the game table, and a lot of people were packed in the kitchen. And so I think sometimes these games, they work really well at parties if they don't require a lot of talking between players. And in The Mind, there's really no talking between players. It's completely silent. It can be played completely silently. There are a few other games like this on my list, like Splendor. Splendor can be played silently. It didn't quite make the list for the top 10. But I think that's an asset to a game when you're playing at a boisterous party. If you don't need to be like shouting over the crowd, whether it's during the game or during the instructions for the game. That's another category I'll get to in a second, the ease of teaching. And I think the mind really accomplishes that because you're not really talking during the mind. The next one is one of the actual party games on this list. This is one that I own, and that is Telestrations. Very traditional party game in which you are drawing a picture. Or actually, the way I love to play is each player starts by writing a word on the tablet. You pass this tablet to the next player. They get to draw a picture of it, and then they pass it to the next player. So it's a little bit like telephone, but you're drawing and writing and guessing what the drawing is interchangeably. My party pack plays up to 12 players, and this is one of the other categories I wanted to mention for a great game that's good to play at parties, and they are games that scale up really well to a large number of players, even on an on-the-fly basis. Because you might sit down with Telestrations with 4 people, and then suddenly 2 other people see it, and they're like, oh, I want to play. And then 2 more people see that. Maybe someone drops out because they hear about a different game or something else going on. So I like that Telestrations scales so well. Another one like that is Shipwreck Arcana, which didn't quite make this top list because Shipwreck Arcana can be, there's some text on the cards that maybe not work the best in a party atmosphere, but it's really close. And Shipwreck Arcana, you can even drop in and drop out players in the middle of the game, which I think is really, really clever. But yeah, Telestrations is the next game on my list. A more traditional party game, but I think it really does play really well at parties. The next one is another game that I own, and that is Incan Gold. Incan Gold is a competitive game where you're running into a dungeon, you're trying to grab some treasure, and then run out before some bad things happen. It's a simultaneous game, and so it scales really well up to, I believe, 8 players, because players are making choices simultaneously. It fits some of these other categories where it's fun to watch. It's very easy to teach. That's a category that I haven't mentioned yet. That is very easy to teach. And so I think at party-type atmospheres, you might have some gamers, you might have some non-gamers, you might have some mixes of experiences of the gamers who are there. And so I think it's great to find a game that's really easy to teach, even if it includes some higher-level decision-making for those who have played more, who are more experienced playing games. And I think Incan Gold does that really well. If you want to really think about it, you can. If not, it's really easy to bring someone new into Incan Gold, as is the case with many of these games that I'm mentioning. So that's Incan Gold. The next game on my list is Skull. Skull is a really fun game. I don't own a copy myself, but a friend has a copy, where you are playing with these little tiles. Each player has these 4 tiles. 3 of them show a flower. 1 of them shows a skull. And you're kind of taking turns guessing, putting out skulls or flowers, and then you're trying to guess if you are able to pick as many flowers as you've bet. I won't get into the rules here, but you can see the rules online. It's a very simple game to learn, and it's one of these games that I think can turn strangers into instant friends, because it has this level of camaraderie to it, and kind of it's not directly cutthroat at all, but you are trying to throw off other players and defeat their plans. And it's just it has this fun nature to it that I think can really build relationships really quickly, which I think is fun at a party, especially if you're playing with a mix of friends and strangers. That's Skull. I have 4 more on the list. Hanabi is another one that I think it's not one that I really think of as a party game, but it's one that I'd gladly play at a party because, again, there's not a lot of talking. There's a little bit of talking, but you can't share all your information. And I think this one's one that could be a lot of fun to watch because you get to, as a spectator, you get to have all of the information that the players don't have. In Hanabi, you hold a hand of cards that's fanned away from you, so you don't get to see what's in your own hand. So a spectator could see everything that's in everyone's hand and feel like they have a little bit of a secret while you're playing. So I think Hanabi does that really well. And again, it can be played in various noise levels. Let's see. Let's go to. I've already done the mind. I forgot to mention the mind. Yeah, right. I mentioned it but didn't show it. Codenames is one that I was a little bit on the fence on for making this list because Codenames does. It can involve some talking. Codenames I think is best if you are engaging with your teammates, but I think Codenames really does work well at a party. Again, it hits many of these categories. It's fun to watch, even if you're not playing. It's easy to jump in and join as the game is being played. It does actually, one of the categories I haven't mentioned is that you probably don't want a game at a party that takes up a lot of space. And Codenames is probably one of the bigger ones on this list, actually, along with Camel Up. But even those games don't require a ton of space. You don't need a full board game table to play any of these games. You just need probably a little side table and some chairs around it. Maybe you can sit, maybe you can stand. So I like that most of these games don't require a lot of table space in an environment where table space is at a premium at like a busy party. The next, so that's Codenames. I didn't even describe what Codenames is, but you probably know what it is, and if not, you can check out a video about what it's about. Cant Stop. Cant Stop is a game that I've actually never played in person. I've only played the digital version, but I have to think that this game is wonderful at parties. And I think part of the reason for this, again, going back to the camaraderie of Skull, different type of camaraderie, and, well, similar in Can't Stop, you're kind of rooting against other players as they're rolling. Again, it's a very kind of, it feels a little bit like craps, and that's one of the reasons why I enjoyed On Tour. In craps, someone's rolling some dice, and everyone's paying attention to what's happening there. They're really engaged in that. I like that Cant Stop has that element where you're really engaged in the game itself. But if you need to be distracted for a minute at a party, that's okay too. Cant Stop is this game where you're rolling dice. You're trying to advance on these tracks faster than the other players. There's a lot of luck involved, but there's still some interesting decisions to make along the way, which I think combine into a nice game to play at a party. The last game I had is New York Slice. This was one that was right on the fence of making it or not. I love New York Slice. It's an I Cut You Choose game where you basically build a pizza and then split up that pizza into different pieces, and people then choose those pizzas. So it's classic I Cut You Choose with a pizza, but it just seemed to really fit at parties. Parties often have pizza there. It's very easy to teach and learn, and it's just kind of, it feels like a game that would fit at a party. It's also really fast. That's another category I haven't mentioned. Unless it's a game night party, I think most parties work better with games that play in like 20 to maybe 40 minutes at most. Because people, different people are coming to the party at different times. You're maybe engaged right now, but in an hour, maybe you want to do something else. So I think all these games, I think, play in 40 minutes or less. And I think that's really important for a game that is played at a party. I think I've mentioned all the categories. I hit all the categories for all these games. So those are my top 10. I'll list them below in the video if you want to look up these games for yourself. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on games that you love to play at parties. I'd absolutely love to hear your thoughts on them. I'm sure there's some great games that can be played at parties that I missed. Maybe some traditional party games, maybe some not so traditional party games that just happen to work really well at parties. Those are my thoughts. And I will see you on Tuesday for my favorite game mechanism video on one of the games that I didn't mention in this video. It'll be a new game. All right, take care.